What's up, guys? This is Brave, and I'm back with another review of Tyler Perry Sistas. This is season 5, episode 20, and the episode is titled What Goes Around. First things first, you guys, I feel like we are so close to the end of this season, and honestly, I'm quite disappointed because I feel like nothing really happened. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and jump right into this review. So, we start off with Danny and Sabrina. So when I tell you I hate this scene, I hated this scene because why did it take Sabrina so long to say, this is Q? This is the guy who set us up. Like, girl, why did you mention that he sleeps with Maurice before you mentioned, oh yeah, this is the guy who had me in jail? You know what I'm saying? And then for Danny to be like, oh my gosh, did you guys sleep together? Did you guys play craps together? Like, what's going on? And then for Q to just stand there with the dumbfounded look that he always have, I'm just like, this is all awkward. This is being dragged out. And another issue that I had was the fact that Danny was only concerned with the fact that, oh, this guy, he actually sleeps with Maurice, as if that is such a negative thing. But I'm just like, girl, you don't know who Jonah laid down with. And who knows who Preston had before you. My point is, I just hate how homophobic they have made Danny's character. Like, it's very strange at this point. Like, I feel like you should have been more concerned about the fact that this is the guy who set your best friend up. Like, this is the same guy who had your friend waiting for some help in jail. And then on top of that, you have Q. He was just standing there the whole time. And then when they finally told him to get out, he's like, oh, okay, well, my clothes are in the bathroom. I'm just like, Tyler, this could have been handled so much better. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and move on. So the intro rolls, and we come back with the ladies, and they're discussing who Q actually is. So Danny actually puts two and two together, and she's like, oh, wait, Logan is probably the person who got him the job, because Sabrina is like, how is this man even working at the airport? Because, like I said, it makes no sense for this man to be on house arrest and he has a job at the airport. Out of all the places that this man could have worked, there's no way that he would have been able to get a job at the airport. Nonetheless, you also have Sabrina going in a little bit on Danny because she's like, you couldn't put two and two together to figure out that Q is this guy, this is Quincy or whatever. And according to Danny, she never put the two and two together because he was introduced as Quincy to her. Now, here's my thing. I feel like we as viewers, we have been waiting for Sabrina to even mention the name Q when I feel like she never did. So I was like, does Danny even know the guy's name? But I guess at some point she did. Now, y'all, I just have to point this one thing out. Why did Danny decide to scratch her head and that wig was shifting and shaking left and right, right and left? I said, girl, put your fingers out the wig. Now, another thing that I wanted to point out in this whole situation is the fact that Q was still in the bathroom while these ladies are having this conversation. And I was like, y'all couldn't get this man out the house before y'all decide to ask questions to each other and try to play investigators and figure out how y'all can get to the bottom of this. Like, make that make sense. So, at one point, he finally comes out the bathroom or whatever, and it still takes him a minute to get out the apartment. Now, circling back to a question that Sabrina had, she was trying to figure out why is Danny even hooking up with Q in the first place because he's just a random guy from her job. Now, according to Danny, she doesn't need a lecture from anybody, but then she also doesn't want Sabrina to tell the other girls. And it's like, no, you're out here making dumb decisions left and right. Please make it make sense at some point, girl. You are spiraling out of control, and you need to, first of all, love yourself before you try to jump in bed with anybody else. And it sucks because as Sabrina is trying to have this conversation with Danny, she's over here making this disgusting bed. And I'm like, girl, no, you need to be taking all that stuff off the bed. If anything, you should be trying to be washing your sheets and your blankets as soon as possible. But back to the conversation that Sabrina is trying to have with her. She's like, there's something going on. I'm gonna tell the girls about this or whatever. But Danny is over here trying to convince her that she doesn't need to tell the girls because what, she's embarrassed, number one, And number two, this is another thing added to the list of things that Danny just can't seem to get right. Because for some reason in her mind, because things aren't working out with Preston, we need to go ahead and sleep with any and everybody else. I'm sorry, girl, you do need an intervention. And what's crazy is that at one point, Sabrina was like, this doesn't look familiar to you. And I thought she was talking about the whole Jonah situation. But no, she was actually referencing something from Danny's past because she said that, doesn't this remind you of how you were in college? And I said, oh, so this is what Danny does. When she gets overwhelmed and she doesn't want to actually face her feelings, she decides to have a rotation of men. Interesting. All right, let's slide on over to Andy. We see that she's getting into the office, and as she's walking past the receptionist stops her, gives her a piece of mail, as well as tells her that the janitor dropped off some flowers for her. And I'm just like, that's interesting that Paris decided to give her flowers because we have hardly seen him this season. We only saw him when old boy confronted him about if he actually slept with Andy. But I guess maybe for the next season they're going to be setting something up. Nonetheless, Andy ends up giving the receptionist the flowers because Baby Girl said that she knew the flower lady who sell them on the corner. All right, y'all. Now we actually see Andy go stop by Robin's office, and she's all like, "Oh, you're gonna have that meeting today," and Baby Boy is serious. So you already know something must have happened overnight. So Andy ends up asking like what's going on, and he has to tell her that the guy who she hooked him up with, this multimillionaire who has all this money, or should I say the gangster, as they kept referring to him last episode, he actually wants more interest. But if Robin sends the money back now, then he's only going to charge him 10%. I'm just like, this is way too much money for y'all to be going back and forth on sending it, resending it, send it back. Like, what are we doing here? So at this point, Robin has to be upfront with her. And he's like, are you actually working with Gary? And I'm just like, dude, you should have asked her that long time ago. Because my whole thing is, even though Andy's trying to not be in the middle, girl, you're still in the middle because this whole thing is over you. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. To both guys, it looks like you're trying to play them against each other, as you have been doing this entire time that you've been interested in Gary and Robin. So as you can see, everybody had their own motives when it came to this situation. So at one point, Andy is like, I don't think you should be asking me questions. And Robin was like, no, I absolutely should be asking you. And I completely agree with him. Because like I said, she's in the middle. So she has to confess that, the whole reason why she even helped him was because she wants him to help her, because she wants to make it as partner in the company. So now we see that she had a motive as well. Now, how did this conversation end? Oh, it was with Andy deciding that she was going to go back to her office and Robin having to stop her and be like, hey, you can't be mad at these types of questions because at the end of the day, you are a lawyer here. And she decided that she was going to say that, well, the reason why it's so different is because he is her boss, but he also slept with her and all this stuff. But I'm like, no, 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 sweetheart. Even if you take out the fact that you slept with Robin, number one, you have asked this man for far too many favors for you to just be able to skate on by and be like, yep, Gary can take his company. It doesn't matter. Like, it should matter to you. Also, you're sleeping with his enemy at this point because Gary is definitely Robin's enemy, and you're literally bouncing between these men. And no, you may not be sleeping with Robin anymore, but like you said, he's still your boss. You still gonna see this man every day at work. Like, I don't know, y'all. I really hate how cold and nasty this conversation ended as far as Andy's attitude, because I'm like, girl, be for real. How is it that you have an attitude with him because he's asking you a valid question and you're still holding on to the fact that he talked to you in a disrespectful way? But the way Gary has dished you multiple times and you keep taking that man back, I don't want to hear it. It's like at this point, I really hope that Andy doesn't make a partner. I hope that Robin actually wins against Gary and Andy ends up with egg on her face. Am I the only one who wants that to happen? Because I really want her to get played. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and move on. All right, y'all. So now we hop on over to Sabrina's house because Calvin has come over. So she does let him know that Bio's going to pay for Maurice to get out of jail. And of course, she's super excited. But him, on the other hand, not so much. Because he did ask her, is she planning on, seeing him again? And she says yes. And I'm like, dude, just accept that she is no longer interested in you in that way. So what magically happens? Of course, they get a call from Maurice, and they tell him the good news that at some point he will be getting out because Bio decides to put up the money, and Andy is working on it. Now, when they get off the phone with Maurice, um, Sabrina is like, "Hey, do you want to go with me to go see Andy?" And Calvin, his little feelings are hurt, so he doesn't want to go anywhere with Sabrina. But he did say that he will meet up with her later when it's time to get Maurice out. So he goes ahead and leaves her apartment, and we're going to slide on over to Andy and Fatima at the office. So, of course, Andy wants an update on how things went last night, and Fatima is telling her that, she ended up going home and things are going to be okay between her and Zach. And also, Andy mentioned that things are going to be okay with her and Karen because Karen did decide to apologize. Now, remember I told you that Andy ended up getting some mail earlier. Now, I hope Tyler is not trying to play with us, make it seem like the envelope that the receptionist had was this envelope that Andy has on her desk right now. Because last time I checked, she collected that when she saw Karen at the steam plant. Nonetheless, they talk about how Zach is going to be very generous in his paperwork, because he wants to give Karen a fair amount of money for the baby when it comes to the child support or whatever. And Fatima's like, that was all Zach, that was all his idea, how much he was going to give her all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, cool. But here's the thing. Andy said that she was going to advise Karen to sign the papers, but I thought she already signed them in front of Zach. Maybe I'm tripping. So while they're in Andy's office, Fatima happens to notice Hayden and old girl, so she already knows she has to get to the bottom of what that situation is. Because the whole point of her even getting Tamara to mess around with Hayden was so that he could drop Heather. We'll see if that even happens. Now let's slide on over to this phone call between Fatima and Zach. The whole purpose of this conversation was so she could tell Zach that he was wrong for what happened between him and Karen and for him to go apologize. Now, do I think that he absolutely needs to apologize to Karen? Yeah, because he definitely raised havoc when he went into that restaurant, and then he also slightly put his hands on her because she was trying to leave. So yes, Zach was absolutely in the wrong. Now, Zach, on the other hand, he's like, yeah, I'll think about it. Now, of course, she has to regulate on him and be like, as a woman, I would definitely be hurt because of the way you acted. So we already know, because Fatima said so, Zach is going to apologize to Karen at some point. Now, one thing that I wasn't pointing out was that in this conversation, Fatima pointed out the fact that, all because it seems like he has a lot of money now, it might not always be that way because, he about to be handing out child support left and right. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad that somebody finally mentioned this because Zach does not have an income besides his tenant next door. That's the only income that Zach has coming in. We have not seen him flip a house, buy another property. We haven't seen any of that. Hopefully we see it in Zatimba because I'm just like, yes, he made money off that stock or whatever, but what happened to him diversifying his portfolio? What happened to him investing in other stuff? Like, I hate that we completely dropped that storyline, but hopefully we pick it back up in Zatimba because now the only thing we see with Zach is baby mama drama, and I'm over it. All right, y'all, let's slide on over to Gary and Hayden. So let's just talk about how Tyler Perry just decided to switch things up on us. Gary, he's happy because he feels like they're about to play Robin, right? And according to him, he talked to Robin's money guy So they definitely feel like he's going to be on the ropes. And I'm just like, well, last time I checked, I thought that Hayden was supposed to call the gangster's brother because he knew his brother. So we just gonna completely eliminate that storyline. Okay, fine. Now Gary has all the connections. So let's actually have this conversation about what went down once they got into the office of Robin. Baby, here's the thing. The guys finally sit down because at first Hayden, he acted like he needed a special request for him to sit down or whatever. Hayden is trying to figure out why, not Hayden, Robin. Robin is trying to figure out why are they there? Because he already has the money. What is the purpose of them even sitting in his office? So Gary decides to take the wheel and he's like, well, there was a call made and you had to have your money, blah, blah, blah. But on top of that, the partners decided to bring in an additional $10 million. So now Robin, he has to come up with an additional $3 million. And I'm just like, can we stop dragging this storyline along? Like, I'm over it. But Robin, he ends up telling the guys that, hey, you guys didn't tell me this within a reasonable amount of time, so I can get you this in 30 days. But they're like, no, it can't be 30 days or whatever. So he's like, fine, I'll have the money by 5 o'clock or whatever. And they end up leaving his office. Hopefully, Robin has this money so that way we can finish this whole Robin versus Gary and Hayden because actually at this point it's anticlimactic. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and move on. So we actually see Fatima, she checks in with the receptionist to find out where is Tamara. We find out that Tamara is in the break room. She is filling out a job application. And Fatima tells her, girl, you cannot work here. Like, that was not a part of the plan. You need to go ahead, throw a fit so that he can drop Heather, and that should be it. But no, when Fatima leaves, even though Tamara has all her broken promises of, girl, I got this in a bag, he gonna be wrapped around my finger. Y'all, we gonna see what happens because baby girl kept filling out that job application because she thinks that she can have her cake and eat it too. We will see how this actually plays out because I feel like there may be a chance that Fatima might be getting played. Now let's go ahead and move on because Sabrina actually showed up to the office because, of course, she has to go check in with Andy. So Andy gives her the good news that, Maurice is going to be getting out soon and that she can go pick him up. So you already know that Sabrina is happy about that. However, she does tell Andy that there's somebody that she should be checking on, and that person is Danny. So Sabrina was very honest in this moment where she actually told Andy that Danny slept with Q. And, this reminds me of how she was in college. Now, I feel like this show has definitely made references to how the girls were in college. So hopefully when they do have this little intervention with Danny, we get a better understanding of how she was in college and why she is the way she is now. So the girls decide that they're going to have a intervention conversation thing happen later at Danny's house or whatever. They just go pop up on her after work. Now, as far as Sabrina goes, Andy is trying to figure out how in the world did she convince this man to give her that amount of money, just by asking. Now, according to Sabrina, she actually had a question for Andy. She was like, do you not think that a man can get me nice things? I mean, Gary, he, gives you a Rolls Royce and an apartment and all this stuff. And I say, yeah, but here's the thing. She is f***ing him, okay? She is sleeping with Gary. Unfortunately, they actually had a relationship. You and Bio have been on, what, 1 or 2 dates? Girl, that is kind of crazy. Like, I don't think Andy was questioning if why would a man give someone like Sabrina money. I think it was more so the fact that you don't really know this man, so why would he give you money? You know what I'm saying? But let's go ahead and slide on over because we finally see Karen, y'all. We ain't seen her this whole episode, and the episode is almost over. So we see her giving some lady a perm. And Andy ends up calling her because she probably wants to tell her about the Danny situation. And Karen is like, tell her I'm going to call her back. So Karen actually tells Pam that she needs to start sending her videos. And I can't lie, I am tired of Karen mentioning that Pam needs to send her videos when she locks up. I feel like that has been an every episode thing that has been said, and I'm over it. But then here we go, Aaron shows up because, as we know, this man ain't really got no job because he spends all his time catering to Karen. So he strolls in with food or whatever, and he over here asking Pam if Karen had a smoothie this morning. Baby, listen, Pam is not trying to keep those types of tabs on Karen. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. So, like I said, Aaron brought lunch, right? So he tells um Karen, like, yo, are you almost done with your client? Because it's time for you to eat lunch, basically. And she's like, I have this client to finish. I'm almost done with her. And then I have another client after her. And he's like, well, that client's going to have to wait because you're going to have to eat. So he says that he's going to go back, I guess, to the restaurant, go get some spoons because he forgot them. But I'm like, are we low key seeing a controlling side of Aaron? Is Aaron going to be the type of guy who keeps tabs on Karen's every move and control what she can and cannot do? Is that what we're going to get out of him? Because if that's just it, I'm going to need a little bit more. Because his character ain't really doing nothing right now for me. So I need for him to be into like some grimy, slimy stuff for me to really care. Now, let's slide on over to Zach because there is a knock at his door, and it is this random black guy who is looking for Fatima. Now, of course, we have the typical Tyler Perry written fashion of the back and forth. Who are you? What's your name? What do you do? That whole type of situation because Zach is trying to figure out who this guy is. Because at one point it looked like the guy was going to walk away, but he finally started answering the questions or whatever. And he finally says who he is. His name is Joey, and he is Fatima's baby's father. Now, those were his words. Now, I'm just curious, was he one of the guys that may have gotten Fatima pregnant and she may have had a miscarriage, or she didn't tell him that she didn't keep the baby or something? Who knows what it's going to be, but I do not think that Fatima is going to have some secret child. I don't see that because of the way her character is set up. That would be so random and weird. Yeah, I don't see that. Now, y'all, that was where the episode ended. To be honest, this episode was lame. Hopefully next week is better. Fingers crossed. Because like I said earlier, we are getting closer to the season finale. Like, are we gonna get a cliffhanger that's worth it or what, Tyler? Nonetheless, let me know what y'all thought about this episode. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and I will talk to y'all in the next one. Bye, guys.